Unfortunately, you can't get to purpose if you're always oriented to safety. There has to be risk. There has to be a willingness to take a leap and then deal with all of the feelings and experiences that come up when you're out in deep water, but trying to figure out how to swim. If you're going to create in the world, you can't be your own adversary. You have to be your own ally. And I think learning to find that compassionate perspective about all of these experiences, like learning how to parent the vulnerable, scared part of you rather than reject it.
That's right.
That seems to me the thing that keeps me going creatively.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Inner Work. I'm really excited about the conversation ahead with Paul Wyman. He is an entrepreneur, executive coach, and now author of an incredible book, Part of Me, published just last year. He's formerly the director of people and development for a hospital system in Colorado and was an internal coach at E&Y at Ernst & Young. So you've had, Paul, this incredible history. Thank you so much for being a part of Inner Work and coming to share your leadership story with us.
Well, thanks for having me. I'm glad to be here.
Yes. We got to meet a couple of months ago on a call with New Ventures West, where I stay engaged with them, did my coaching certification there, and we did a book study of Part of Me. And it was an incredible experience to get to read the book and then meet you and discuss the book and hear the impact in your own life. And I felt that because I did that thing that many of us do these days where we read parts and listen to parts on Audible. So I really own 2 copies of your book, one audio version, and so you're welcome for both of those purchases. But I feel that I'm a stranger to you in many ways, but I feel as though I've gotten to know you, and I'm just really grateful for the work that you've done and the path that you've forged for many of us in this space. So thank you for taking time to be here.
Absolutely. Yeah, well, it's been a labor of love, in the most literal sense, to bring the book into the world and then the work that the book is based on. And I mean, labor, absolutely, a huge amount of work, but also love. This is work that I love, and I think it's bringing love into the world.
Mm-hmm.
That's what this whole enterprise is about.
That's and that's there's a concept that you bring up of a type of self-acceptance and appreciation that is radical to many of us. And don't talk about it yet, but I'm excited to hear more about that from you. So the outer life, so your world these days, what does leadership look like for you now? What is your leadership life like?
Well, a number of different aspects to it. These days, I'm still doing some executive coaching, but my primary work is with this body of work that I've built out over the last few years called inner team dialogue. So it's a parts work method. So it'll sound a lot like things like internal family systems, even though it's from a different origin than that. And for the last 5-6 years, I've been building out kind of a framework, a body of knowledge around this, a set of practices, a community of practitioners who formed around the work. And so my work is to, make that happen in the world, make this incredible body of work available to coaches so it can be a benefit to their clients. So that's the essence of what I'm up to.
Yeah. And this is a shift for you from having been in a corporate environment and the work that you did there. What created that shift?
I think, I'll tell you just a brief example of the story. So I worked internally in a couple of different organizations doing coaching, organization development, and, some culture work. So somewhat in the same space that you operate in. And I realized after 20 years or so in this field that coaching was really the only part of it that I had energy for. So I sort of shifted out of doing sort of OD and large group and culture level work into just doing one-on-one work. So I ended up moving into a role as an internal executive coach, but that was my job. All I did all day was coach partners in a professional services firm.
Yeah.
And I was all excited about it. Here's this like I get to show up and just coach people. I never have to do any marketing and I never have to do any invoicing. It's like, we're in heaven, right?
I've arrived. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like everything I love and none of the stuff I don't.
Mhm.
Uh, didn't work out that way.
Mhm.
Nothing against the organization.
Sure.
For them. What was clear to me is that my work was really about creating change, and there wasn't really a change agenda inside the organization. They were very successful doing what they've always done.
Mhm.
So when I came in with the sort of inquiry about what else is possible,
Mm.
there was a kind of, wasn't kind of shut down, but it was a kind of a disinterest, and there was no energy
Sure.
in these conversations. It was just, how do I do what I've always done, just slightly better?
Right.
And
The
frankly,
incremental improvement. Absolutely.
yeah, I mean, from the point of view of the clients, there was real value in that. From
Yeah.
my point of view, I was bored silly
Yeah.
because the place I wanted to go with my clients was into some other way of being in the world, which wasn't just about achieving external goals.
Yeah.
Can I give you an example of like
Thanks.
that got
Yeah.
really? So, I was working with a gentleman who had just been promoted to partner level, big organization, right? And I asked him about his goals and aspirations, and and he said, "Well, I'd just like to get through the next cycle of work without any they were called findings, without any problems coming to light in the work that
Mm.
he's doing." And I said, "Well, that's great. If you didn't have any of those findings, then what would that make possible for you?" And he just looked at me. I'm like, and he did, like, the question didn't compute. So I let it sit to see, would this generate any sort of deeper reflection of like, well, what's important about that for you? Or what matters for you about this for you?
Yeah.
And the extent of his vision was simply not failing. So the absence of failure was his definition of success.
Yeah.
And, all power to him on one level, because that was his world and it was a high risk world. And, that actually made sense in his context.
Yeah.
But I remember coming off that call saying, what have I done? What am
Mm.
I doing here?
Yeah. And how early was that in the transition? Because you were over, I imagine working on culture and development for an organization, there was more of you're a change maker. You are, right? How
Yeah,
quickly did you have that understanding of, we're talking about different games, different playing fields?
completely different.
Yeah.
And I think I knew pretty early on, not that it was a mistake, but that I was sort of a misfit in that environment. The thing that I was in the world to do, what I felt called to, what I felt energized by,
Mhm.
and what there was appetite for and energy for were just worlds apart. And so, it took me a while to get to a place of saying, okay, the things that are great about this job, the salary, the benefits, the community, or the clients without having to do any marketing. I mean, all of those things were so appealing, right? And I had to get to a place where I could say, okay, I can, not only can I do without them, but I can't sacrifice the thing I feel like I'm in the world to do any further. It's like it was burning inside me. I couldn't ignore it.
Exactly.
And so that's ultimately what happened. It was just this realization of like, I'm dying inside every time I'm here.
Yeah.
And what I really need to do is to be in a place where I can create what I feel called to create.
And how did you go about that process of making the shift? Was it a slow build? Was it a, hey, I'm out of here? What was that like for you?
Um, well, there were a couple from a couple of moments where a day full of clients, right? I had 6 or 7 people I was supposed to be talking with on a given day.
Mhm.
And I heard myself make excuses for canceling, the completely made up excuses for canceling a couple of appointments with clients that they weren't interested in doing any other work. I felt I was there to do. I ended up making some excuses for blowing off those appointments to go do this other work within a team dialogue that was already starting to kind of tick away in the background. And I'm like, wait, that's out of integrity.
Mhm.
They pay me to do this work. They have every right to expect me to show up for it. So I'm like, okay, I can't stick around for that. If that's how I was feeling, I need to be out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and were you able to make that transition pretty quickly? Because from the perspective of, and this has been the interesting part of business building, and for me now with collective growth, looking to scale. there's what I love to do, and do I get to do it every day? And my vision is that I do long term, but that's not necessarily where I sit today. What was that like for you?
Well, internally it was sort of panic stations of like, will anyone pay me for this work that I feel called to do, that I love to do?
Mhm.
Will I be able to generate business? Because I'm not really a marketer or a brand. All of that stuff was sort of not only something I just didn't have much knowledge about, but just I had a little sort of distaste for. So like, I can make this work.
Mhm.
What I didn't know and became very clear very quickly was that a lot of other people had a high opinion of me,
Mhm.
which surprised the hell out of me. And so I started getting referrals really from day one. As soon as I said I'm available,
Yeah.
the work started coming in, and
Awesome.
it never really stopped. So, I feel incredibly grateful as I'm lifted up by my network and my community, because I've been working in coach development and have a large network of coaches that I work with, and that actually fed everything I was trying to do.
It's incredible. I'm sure the news good news travels fast too, right? And people are like, "Paul's on the market. We're ready." Like, start sending him clients. We can't wait.
Well, I remember the first week I was in private practice again. I had a call from a friend of mine who said, "How many clients could you take on?" And at this point, I had virtually none. And
Yeah.
I said, "Well, how many you got?"
That's
She
what we
said,
need to
"Well,
be
tell me how many." And so we ended up in this conversation about what my capacity was. And I initially said yes to everything. And then predicted that quite quickly. And then started narrowing into
Yeah.
what I felt called to do and energized for, and who, my clients were, as opposed to people who might work better with someone under me.
Yeah. As you and there's all that. And somehow, even when there are conflicts around that, and we're making the best decisions that we can because we're supporting a family or paying the bills or supporting a staff, depending on, what, and we're willing to do things. But if we're pointed toward the purpose, and that was a shift for you, is you can handle some missteps,
Right.
or, I might have played this one wrong, or I took on too much here. I can correct that over time because I'm headed toward what I'm meant to do in the world and how I'm meant to serve.
Yeah, one of my mentors talks about this tension that everyone has to wrestle with between safety and purpose.
Mm.
And so we're all called to safety. We all have bills to pay. We all have a kind of an identity we want to maintain, and that's real.
Yeah.
And then there's also a call to purpose. And unfortunately, you can't get to purpose if you're always oriented to safety. There has to be risk. And there has to be a willingness to take a leap and then deal with all of the feelings and experiences that come up when you're out in deep water, but trying to figure out how to swim.
That's right. Yeah, I in the first episode of Inner Work, I talk about my own kind of moment of truth there and really full commitment. And I've that's been resonating with me in different stories of people in my circle lately about how we are postponing our own joy, our own sense of purpose, our own potential, and through how we're, holding off, staving off through fear, whatever it might be, that we're not giving that last bit of commitment, and until we do, things will not lock in and shift for us.
This is actually one of the ideas that's actually central to the work that I teach in a team dialogue, and there's a slightly different frame around this idea of full commitment, because I totally hear what you're saying. And actually, what was true for me, and I've seen be true for many others, is while I really wanted to bring this work into the world, while I knew it was what I was supposed to do, there was always ambivalence. There was always that part of me that's like, yeah, go for it. You can do this. The world needs this work. It will be successful if you put it out there. There was also the part of me like, who are you to do this?
Mm,
And there's other parts saying, yeah, but it's a crowded field. There's lots of other people doing this. And how is what you're going to do going to be distinctive? And do you know what I mean? So there was
yeah.
always a feeling of ambivalence about it. So for me, full commitment is never 100%.
Mhm.
It's always got this other voice that is the voice of kind of caution, or the kind of more reality as
Yeah,
opposed to desire.
right.
And for me, a lot of the work has been about how do I embrace that, not to let that run me,
Mm,
not to let that decisions for me, but not to deny it and push it away.
That's right.
Because my experience has always been when I deny the rest of the feelings, the ambivalence, the uncertainty, you just get stronger. A lot of my learning has been about all of what you feel going into these creative endeavors, into being an entrepreneur, an accidental entrepreneur. Um, you know, you have to be able to manage those aspects of who you are too, because they're not going anywhere.
Right.
Any entrepreneur
Absolutely.
who's going to tell the truth knows this, right? Like you don't do this work without it being vulnerable as hell a lot of the time.
Yes. Yes. Well, and you're speaking to, so I called myself a reluctant entrepreneur. And I really did this whole safety versus purpose piece, I didn't wanna do it. I was let go from an organization that needed to save money. And so it was, well, I'd been toying with this. I know it was on purpose, right? It was the purpose from above. It was meant to be.
Right.
But you're exactly right. I couldn't shorten the path of how long it took me to get to commitment. I had to completely surrender to it and experience it, and what you point toward is curiosity. So rather than judging myself for not feeling ready, I had to just walk the path and say, there's something in me. There's some part of me that is resisting this. And then all the messages start coming in because life is supporting us and moving toward this. And any resistance is fear, is what another friend of mine says. And so what if I approach that idea with curiosity rather than judgment? Well, what am I fearful of? Well, gosh, isn't that natural that this particular thing would make me feel cautious or fearful? And so, man, do these ideas just completely resonate with our path as really coaches or voices in the world who want to help other people heal and grow, who happen to do that through owning a business. Right? That's kind of still how I think of myself. Toward now, I feel like I'm on the path to have maximum impact. It's to be a CEO. It's to go beyond what I can do to what teams of people can do. And you're building a team as well.
Yeah, and my work is always sort of the inner and the outer mirroring themselves because yes, there's a bit of team dialogues. You are working with the team within
Mm.
in order to be able to work with the team without, with all of the other people who are involved in what you're up to.
Mhm.
And there are a number of different players on my inner team who have strong opinions about what I should and shouldn't be doing,
Yeah.
including some of them who say, that thing you had back about other company where they like paid you a regular salary, that you should really go back to that because that was nice.
That's it.
You like that. And then the other parts go, no, I was dying inside. Don't make me go back there.
That's right. But they all have a voice, and they all have a part to play. And you, because of the philosophy that you've developed and how you built this out, you're inviting them and inviting their wisdom to the conversation to guide you and help create a sense of wholeness.
That's right. Exactly. I mean, the assumption we make is that every voice within us has a point of view that's worth listening to. Now, that doesn't mean you want to have every voice make your decisions for you. I'm not going to choose to act on the part of me that wants to go get a nice, safe job,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Somewhere around. But that doesn't make that voice go away.
Sure.
If I can listen to, well, what is it that part of me is really concerned about? Well, that part of me is concerned about, can I meet my responsibilities to others? Will I have the resources I need to do the creative things I want to do, right? And that's real. There's value in actually looking at that and going, okay, what's true here for me? What's actually important about this?
Yeah.
And how do I listen to it rather than just say, oh, I don't like that part of me that feels that way. It gets in my way and then sort of marginalizing it. And so it's really about turning towards every part of who you are with curiosity rather than, frankly, I think it's a kind of bullying that many of us get into. It's like we take these voices and we take this sort of coercive, judgmental tone about like, I don't like that part. People come to me all the time saying, how do I get rid of this part of me? I'm like,
Yes.
yeah, actually, if you really understood what this part was trying to do for you, you would not want to get rid of it because it has a gift. The gift may be wrapped up in packaging you don't recognize, but there's a gift.
Absolutely. This happened in a coaching call today. I have a client who's unlike most of my clients. We're coaching in a corporate setting, and so we and I were talking about this earlier. Everything's business relevant, but we bring as much spirit as we can into it. But this particular client came from I'm trying to figure out what I want to do in the world
Right.
perspective, and can you walk with me down this path? And so she's dealing with probably ADHD, undiagnosed, some different elements. But the main issue is this inner critic that is on fire. And she has done so much incredible work over the last year. And I can see this progress and evolution and so much to be proud of. And she will get in these kind of fits toward herself where she can't experience that. And so she's in fight or flight. Her nervous system is super reactive. And so she's saying, I didn't use my calendar the right way. I didn't check my phone. I didn't, remind me of the tools I need to be using. And we went back to, hang on, what if there's nothing wrong?
Yeah.
What if
That's
who
actually
you are and your experience today is okay? What then would we say? And we were able to unravel some of this panic that came from this harsh, overly critical voice that was not based in reality, but felt really real.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I actually just quoted the first line of my book. I don't know if you realized that.
Did I?
First line of my book is, "What if there's nothing wrong with you?"
Oh, did it? Oh, I love that I did that. See, this is what a fan I am. What if there's nothing wrong at all? I need to call her and say, hey, sorry, I stole that from Paul.
Hey, it's not a Wyman original. But it is kind of the essence of it. It's like, well, what if even with a client like yours who's experiencing this really painful kind of dark conversation with herself?
Yeah.
What if it was possible to get curious about that? Well, and to judge it as something bad and try and get rid of it. Because every time these kind of parts get activated, it's because they believe you're at risk in some way. You're vulnerable. They're actually trying to protect you.
That's right.
And it would be a little bit like, let me shut off the fire alarm, but I'm going to ignore the fire.
Yeah.
Right. All of these signals of like, stop, you're in danger, you're not doing it right. All of that is our system trying to signal us.
Yeah.
So all we do in this approach, and this has kind of been my own learning and my own journey through, is keep turning towards it with curiosity, because there's always something in there that you need.
Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes all there is an old story that you can go, oh, I've heard that story before. I don't need to follow that now.
Right. Right. But recognizing the trigger that may have brought up that old story could be valuable, because then we're faster to the, oh, wait, it's an old story, instead of allowing it to be part of today. Hey noticers, if you're dreaming of glowing, healthy skin, you must try Henna Azul Korean skincare. Myung Chong has been transforming skin for 27 years with facials so good, they create the Henna Azul glow. I've been going to her med spa for years, and my skin looks better than ever. Her products use medical-grade ingredients that truly nourish your skin and keep it radiant. Visit hennaazul.com to explore her amazing products and services. That's HANNAISUL.com. Now go get your glow. So the and this is related exactly to ambivalence as a resource, not a problem. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, I mean, ambivalence, I think, is the normal state of being human. So if you think about, anyone who wants to start a business or is leading in a business, you're going to have multiple different impulses that occur at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I'll give you some examples. One would be, I really want to tell my boss what I think. I also really think I should keep my big mouth shut.
Yes.
It's ambivalence. It's what part of you that thinks speaking up is the way to move forward. Another part that says then chorus the way to move forward. The way to stay safe and be okay. So this is ambivalence, right? So anytime you're feeling two feelings simultaneously that seem mutually exclusive, you're just experiencing two parts of who you are. My favorite example of this is about family relationships. I may love my family members, but that doesn't mean I want them to come stay in my house.
Absolutely.
I could both love them and not want to be around them all the time.
And want a little distance. Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So what we do in this is we don't make ambivalence a problem. We just say, yeah, it's a normal state of being human. You're contradictory.
Yeah.
You'll have many different aspects, many different reactions to a single stimulus. And one of the best ways to move forward with that is just simply to stop to name and identify the different parts of you that are reacting the way they do. And they will always have wisdom and insight for you if you try towards them and get curious.
Yeah. And so you would say internal multiplicity is a different way of saying ambivalence.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, ambivalence, actually, I love what the word actually means. Ambi means two, like being ambidextrous, like being able to use both hands, right? So ambi means two. Valens is a German word meaning power. So ambivalence means having two powers.
Oh, wow.
So it's a lovely, simple way of understanding. It's not like, okay, I've got this internal conflict. How do I resolve it? And I could choose door number one and close door number two. It's like, no. Listen to both because they're both sources of power. And you can then be a choice about what aspects of both you can act on, or you can choose one over the other, but only having listened to them.
Right. Yeah. That's really lovely because there's so many, as we grow as individuals, times that we have to hold things that seem to be opposites.
Yeah, like safety and purpose.
Yeah. And that it's not a weakness, which I think I'm so ambivalent, or that person is ambivalent is not a positive thing. But in as we look at it this way, to have contradictory impulses, to have different ways of thinking about things, that truly, I mean, that's how we source innovation, is to not look at something through a single lens, to look at it through different options and invite different perspectives. And that's very in keeping with, if I'm peaceful with myself, if I radically accept myself and my perspectives, then I can hear these different and sometimes seemingly opposite voices and hear the truth.
The only issue with ambivalence is when we decide it's a problem. We decide we have to resolve it and get to some sort of state of like, I know my own mind. And there's a kind of an image in society, I think, that's sort of cultivated by sort of Hollywood heroes to a large degree, of like this hero that always knows his or her own mind and is never in any doubt and moves forward with total confidence. It's like, that isn't being human. I mean, that's a fantasy version, then, right? It's a very seductive one because you wouldn't want to feel that kind of certainty. But it's not actually what it means to be human. What it means to be human is to have contradictions all over the place.
Absolutely.
And one of the things in this system that I teach is that every part of who we are has an opposite part. So for every strong voice that you hear giving a commentary on what you should or shouldn't be doing in your life, there's actually an opposite voice too. So a lot of the work we do with clients where I teach people in this program is how do you both honor the voice that's coming up that you're listening to, but also its opposite.
Yeah.
And ambivalence is very, very often between those opposite voices.
It's amazing. And so what's the next frontier for you then? And you've issued so much of the work that you've loved and that you found so much meaning in personally and for your team that's now in the world, and you have a harmonious inner team and a great team that you work with in the world.
Hell no. It's never hard.
No, it's not involved. It's not bunch, Paul.
So what it is do you remember? I remember listening to President Obama talking about the idea of team of rivals, right?
Yeah.
Right, this idea of when you've got a really vibrant, high-performing external team, they don't always agree with each other, right? Like there's very creative conflict, there's differences point of view, there's disagreeing with, there's a sort of lovely friction that happens at different points of view. It's like everything that's great about having a diverse group of people, right? The same happens internally. Like, I mean, and actually in some ways by turning towards and getting curious, it can initially be more confusing because it's like, oh my God, there's so many different points of view here. How do I make sense? How do I move forward with all of these contradictory impulses that I'm now aware of?
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm.
And what's lovely is as you pay attention to them, there's kind of an inner quiet that starts to emerge, where as you've listened to all of them, they quiet down, and then there's a kind of a calm wisdom that seems to emerge sort of in the space they create after they felt heard. And that's very often what guides me is, a lot of time listening to parts that have strong opinions and then coming back to this center of I am not my parts. So
Yeah.
who am I here?
Mhm.
Because it's very easy for me to act on one of these parts. I think who knows the answer,
Yeah.
but it's not really who I am. So that's what I try and come back to kind of guide me forward.
And that you've named that as inner team leader,
That's right. You call it
right?
the inner order. Yeah. And
Yeah.
for people who know internal family systems, which is the most well known of the different parts systems, they call that self energy. It's really the same.
Yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
I love that idea though, of the inner team leader, 'cause I think we like to identify that way as the hero, but it's not through domination or silencing.
Right.
It's through curiosity and listening and embracing and
I mean, it's the same rules of leadership in the outer world work in the inner world, right? Like
that's
if you
right.
kind of lead you're in a diverse team, what's that leader's job? Draw the best out of all the talent you have, get every voice heard, get the best idea no matter who it comes from. I
That's
mean,
right.
it is, right? Same true internal.
Yeah.
All we're doing is turning that same skill of sort of inclusive leadership and valuing all voices, we're just turning it inward.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, inner inclusion in that way actually drives outer inclusion. Because then when I meet someone else in my life who has a strong opinion that's different from mine,
Mm.
I don't get thrown off by it anymore because I can recognize I got lots of strong opinions in me too.
That's right. That's right. How are you seeing your work these days impact leaders and the people that you're coaching?
It's sometimes I'm often a step or two removed from the impact because the work I'm teaching, there's sort of a building the framework and the tools to support coaches in practicing it has taken a huge amount of my bandwidth. But what happens is that after we train people in how to use this, understand the framework, but how to use it as a technique with their coaching clients, I hear stories on a regular basis now of how this is um, impacting people's coaching clients. So there's a couple of hundred team dialogue practitioners out there now who are using this with clients. And so, every week or so, I'll hear a story of like, hey, Paul, I just did this thing. And this client had this massive breakthrough and they said it was better than a year of therapy. And it's like, those are the good days.
But yes,
Yeah. And,
that's the
and the,
purpose.
the kind of impact is very, very often when people recognize that what they thought was a bad part of themselves or
Mm.
was actually an ally in disguise and
Ah,
discover that. Can I give you an example? Because it might make more
yes.
sense.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
We heard recently from one of the coaches that I trained that she was working with a leader in a large organization
Mhm.
around boundary setting, a huge issue for many people
Sure.
inside organizations who will eat you alive unless you have boundaries
Yeah.
of limitations to what you're willing to do. So what would happen for her is she would say yes, 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 yes to all the demands of this organization,
Mhm.
and then finally she'll get overwhelmed, and get too much,
Yeah.
and then she would angrily push back. So when she set boundaries, it always had anger associated with it. She would be like, it's not just actually, I don't want to do that. It's, hell no, I can't believe you asked, right? So it
Right.
had fierceness to it.
Mhm.
And so this coach that I trained was using this technique to help this person get in touch with the part of her that could set boundaries. And this part turned out to be very calm,
Mm.
very straightforward, very clear. And as she got to know that part of herself, she realized, she said, my boundaries don't have to be barbed wire fences.
Oh, wow.
It can set a soft boundary that actually honors the relationship. She discovered this through the work. And, that was, I had lots of stories along the same lines, but that one was one that just stayed with me. 'Cause I'm like, yeah,
It's
that's what.
incredible. I can imagine that you silence that boundaried part of yourself silence, 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 then it will roar.
That's right.
Right? I mean, it only makes sense. It's about energy,
That's
right?
yeah.
What's a part of you, Paul, that you once had an adversarial relationship with that now you maybe find it funny or it's a friend?
Well, I'll give you an example. One of the pairs of parts that we talk about in this system is the expert and the learner. Right. So I'd have to grow up in a family system where expert was what was celebrated and rewarded, right? Like, so if you're smart,
Many
you
of
know things,
Yeah.
you get rewarded for that. And
Mm.
it didn't feel safe to not know things, to
Right.
not be expert. So, I adapted to that by developing a very strong kind of expert part, which is part of the reason why I can take a body of work and bring it out into the world and say, here you go. I'm going to share the
Stand
expertise
behind it.
right? So it's been very, very useful to you in a lot of ways. But the expert believes that not knowing the answer is death.
Yeah, it's deadly.
Yeah, like a gap in knowledge is shameful,
Yeah.
right? And so I've had to work with that part that feels really scared of the idea, the idea of not knowing everything. And of course, I'm smart enough that I don't believe I should know everything, but this part believes that.
Mhm.
So what I've had to do is cultivate the opposite of that, which is the learner part, which is the part that recognizes what you don't know. And rather than being ashamed by what I don't know, now I get excited.
Yeah.
I'm like, you just told me something about my own system that I didn't know. And I'm going to go research and explore and learn more. And actually my energy lifts. So I've had to get to that learning part.
Yeah.
And obviously, learner and expert together are great because then you feel enough confidence in what you know that you're willing to share it, but you're continually learning and learning and learning and trying to help more.
Absolutely. Celebrate it. That's right. That's awesome. Um, so we can move forward with the idea that ambivalence is not something to fix. It's something that we can be curious about, and it can be a resource for us, which is lovely. What else would you offer to someone who maybe has dealt with this, with ambivalence being a problem for them, or maybe people have labeled it as you can't commit? What would you offer them as a buoy or a life preserver?
But the part of you that thinks ambivalence the problem is a part that you maybe need to listen to. The part that says you should have everything figured out. You should know your own mind, right?
Yeah.
And that's actually not a realistic and real expectation we can have. There's a part of the beliefs that so we get curious about it and we turn towards it and we listen to that point of view.
Mhm.
Um, and it's not the only point of view. So if there's a part that believes you should have everything figured out, is another part that's comfortable not knowing. It's a little bit like the expert and learner that I was just talking about.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I think ambivalence is a great way into this.
To explore.
Yeah, and with ambivalence, almost always what happens when you turn towards both sides is you recognize there's a both and solution.
Mm.
When I can't choose between two things that I need, for example, how would I choose between safety and purpose?
Mhm.
You know, still have bills to pay, and I still have purpose. How do I do both?
Mm.
Okay, well, that's an interesting question, and that's enables you to move forward. So out of ambivalence usually comes some kind of both and solution that feels like it honors all parts of who you are, rather than you have to sort of split yourself in two and say, I'm going to ignore this part. I'm just going to use that part.
Yeah. It's wonderful. It's great to be in a place where we can explore that and have a little bit of a history of facing dichotomies and allowing curiosity to lead us to
Right.
it helps us develop self-trust.
I think there's also another piece about vulnerability is because, if you're going to live creatively in the world, you can do that in any role, right? I happen to be creating a body of work, but there's many ways to live in a creative way where you're bringing something into the world that wouldn't have existed otherwise, right?
Right.
If you're going to do that, you are going to encounter vulnerability. I don't think there's a
Mhm.
way to do that without experiencing the vulnerability. And so I think most of the advice out there of push through the fear and
Yeah.
don't let it run you, and or being sort of hyper positive and sort of ignoring all of the difficult things that are there.
Yeah.
I don't think that works very well because it also makes you an enemy of yourself in a way. And I think this kind of I can't think of it as self-bully, coercion, I don't think it's a very good track record.
That's right.
If you're going to create in the world, you can't be your own adversary. You have to be your own ally. And I think learning to find that compassionate perspective about all of these experiences, like learning how to parent the vulnerable, scared part of you rather than reject it.
That's right.
That seems to me the thing that keeps me going creatively.
Absolutely. Well, and most of us, and this was the client I was mentioning earlier today, we feel a pressure, we get triggered by something, and we just run. We move, and we're trying to avoid thinking or processing this thing. The solution that we're talking about, turning towards it, ends. It doesn't take that much. It actually takes less energy, right? But there's the resistance of, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. Then once we do it, if we can get our nervous systems comfortable with that, we're able to move forward much faster. So it's not this radical difference that we're talking about. It's changes are like,
yeah. I mean, you're 100% right. The fear that we have is that if we turn towards, for example, an afraid part, then we'll be completely taken over by those feelings. Won't be able to function, right? The reality when people actually experience it is the opposite happens.
Yeah.
When you listen to a part that's afraid, you feel less afraid afterwards.
Right.
Because we all need to be witnessed.
Yeah.
Right. And when you as a witness, they actually de-escalate. And that's what we're doing it internally.
We're witnessing our own experience, right? And rather than running from it. And many of us run is that what got you here won't get you there effect, right?
Yeah.
That I got to this point and I've been recognized because I'm muscled. And the muscle is not going to take me past this point. It's going to be the generosity toward myself. And
I think one of the more interesting questions for people in your organizational life is when you ask people, why do you think you've been successful? Because usually people trot out the conventional kind of, well, I've worked hard, or I've been reliable, or I've hired people smarter than me. Like you hit cliches, right?
Sure.
Actually, I think a lot of the reasons why people are really genuinely successful and the kind of leaders that others will work for is because they're good humans.
Yeah.
I don't think you could be a good human with other people unless you could be that with yourself. And so yes, what we're up to, I think, in this work going bringing forward is how do you help leaders who don't have that reinforced around them in all their digital lives? How do you learn to give yourself what others aren't giving you?
It's beautiful. And it doesn't hold us back. It actually equips us to move through the world more powerfully. Yeah. Beautiful. 100%. I'd love if you would humor me, do our quick fire to close exercise where we ask you to share. Okay, ready? One book, one value, and one daily practice. And you can't say part of me.
Gosh. Okay, so one book, one value,
and a daily practice.
Daily practice. Well, the value has to be curiosity.
Absolutely.
It keeps you open.
Yeah.
One practice. For me, it's a practice I call the inner bow. So whenever a part activates in me, and I'm freaking out about something, or I'm worrying about this, or whatever that part is, I'd visualize myself literally bowing to it. Thank you. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for
being. Lovely.
And it puts me into a relationship with the part where it's like, I'm with you. I hear you. I'm glad you're here, as opposed to, get away from me. You know what I mean?
I'm not afraid of you. You're welcome. Yeah.
The book, I think, translates a lot of sort of this inner work into a way of being in the outer world is a book called Mastering Leadership by Bob Anderson and Bill Adams.
Okay.
The founders of the Leadership Circle profile, which is a body of work.
Yes.
Where they bring the inner and the outer together in a beautiful way. So that book's one I recommend it to many clients.
Wonderful. And is it mastery in or of leadership?
Mastering leadership. It's the title.
Mastering. Got it. Mastering leadership. Lovely.
it's a lovely book. I mean, gosh, I could pick almost anything off the shelf here. There's like, it's a great amount. But that's one I use a fair bit with my leadership coaching.
Wonderful.
And another that I find is a great resource for a lot of people is Jennifer Gardy-Berger's book, Changing on the Job.
Yeah.
It's a book about vertical development and just how we grow and mature as humans. And it's a beautiful framework, and it fits together, has hand in glove with life.
Yeah. And I love that perspective that the workplace is developmental and that it doesn't have to be where we clock in and clock out. It can be where we grow to be our best selves. And if we as leaders approach the workplace that way, wow, what a change that could make.
Exactly. Yeah, there's this beautiful idea from Robert Keegan. He called it the deliberately developmental
Organization. Yeah. DDO, right? Yeah. Oh, I love, Keegan and Lahey. They're incredible. Paul, thank you so much for spending time with me today on Inner Work. It's such a joy to get to hear more about your story and everything that you're up to in the world. And thank you for your work. You're impacting so many.
You're welcome. It's fun to be bringing it into the world. And it's fun to hear the stories of how they pleased.
That's awesome. Well, let's stay in touch. It's been a joy to have you. Thank you so very much. And thanks everybody for being with us on Inner Work today.